it down right. Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 7 of Superpower Logic Podcast. I'm Kelly, and as always, I'm here with my good buddy Richard. We're recording today is Thursday, July 30th. Um, we're going to discuss a little bit about some what's been in the news. Recently, Mr. Tony Fauci made some headlines for going to the Senate, and while at the same time he claimed his Fifth Amendment rights, he did provide a statement denying some of the very things he was being accused of. But before we get started on that, we want to hear from Richard. Richard, tell us a little bit about your vacation to the heartland of America. And the fish you caught, were they this big or this big?
They were pretty big. Some of them were. I caught a lot of fish. It's hard to believe this is our seventh episode already.
I know.
Um, I had to almost check our YouTube channel. I'm like, seven already? Wow. Yeah, we went to Lisa and I and a bunch of her family. We went to Montana to Big Sky Country, and it was an amazing trip. We uh, went into the north entrance of Yellowstone and met our outfitters, and we rode a little over 8 miles into Yellowstone National Park, into Custer Gallatin National Forest, which is right outside of Yellowstone, and had our camp there and spent a long weekend fishing and making memories and having a great time. We were completely unplugged from the world. There's no electricity at the campsite. There's no cell service. There's a satellite phone for emergencies, and that's about it. Um, it's a weird feeling, I will say, to to leave the campsite, get on a horse, go fishing with no wallet, no keys, no cell phone. Um, it just you kind of it just felt
Was it
very bizarre to
freeing
me.
though?
It
Well,
was. It was
yeah.
not. It was not uh, in any way triggering anxiety or anything like that. It was quite relaxing, and it was nice to uh, enjoy. Our outfitters and our wranglers were awesome. So you're making new friends too, and sitting around the campfire, nobody's looking at their phones. We take batteries for our phones just for taking pictures.
Well,
So
yeah.
when people had their phones out, it was just sharing pictures.
Yeah.
That's all. And and
You
we're
you
still
weren't like running through X to check the latest
no,
news. Good for you
no. And
guys.
I kind of thought too on Friday morning before we embarked off the trailhead, and you kind of okay, the phone's in airplane mode or you're just powering it off, whatever. I was a little, had a little bit of anxiety. I'm not going to lie about what's going on,
Yeah.
what will be taking place, with Iran and all these different things. And also, I mean, I'm a sports fan. What's going on with my baseball team and stuff? But you kind of forget about that pretty quickly. Riding horses is like riding a bike to an extent. I rode horses when I was a little kid, and I have not rode a horse for 40 plus years. And it's amazing how there were some anxious moments at first, but it's amazing how you get more comfortable with it. And I had a really nice horse. He was a good boy. So it
Did
was
you
great.
now, if you don't mind me asking a little bit on the horses, did they have a bunch of them? You could kind of test them out before you went? Or did they show up with the right number of horses and
Yeah.
you
So they, before the trip, they get everyone's height and weight, and they marry you up
okay.
with the horse. So my
Okay.
horse's name was Watson, and he was an awesome horse. Uh, and he was very patient with me. But by
How
the
old is
time
Watson?
oh, he's five or
Okay.
six, by the time we left the park on Monday, um, he and I were getting along really well, and he's kind of one of those horses that you got to pat him out all the time, and confidence and a lot of positive reinforcement. I learned one of the wranglers told me that after we rode into the camp, and um,
That's great.
yeah, it was an amazing trip, and I
To
highly
be fair,
recommend people
to be fair to
unplugging.
what? Wait, but to be fair to Watson, I mean, if Richard, if you're going to be riding a horse all day, you can give the horse some love.
Absolutely. So he and I had a little bit of a rough start. It is not the easiest ride through Yellowstone for somebody who hasn't done it for a long time,
Okay.
uh, and you also have delays with the buffalo. There are buffalo
Oh,
everywhere.
and
Um,
unpredictable, right?
they're unpredictable to an extent, but again, we have our outfitters, and I mean, this is what they do for a living, and they've been living this life in that part of the country, which is a beautiful part of the country, for like I said, for their entire lifetimes, and they know this country extremely well. Uh, we had
Oh,
bears. We had a bear when we got to our camp, and then he came back. We got to our camp Friday afternoon, and the bear came back on Friday evening. And so one of the outfitters grabbed it's called a cracker shot. It's a little,
okay.
I believe it's a 20 gauge double barrel shotgun, and it's basically like a kick-ass M80. And so you fire it at the bear. The shot scares the bear. And the bear was like
Okay.
50 feet away from us. So it scares the bear, but then about 3 seconds later, I would say they're like M80 fireworks. They go off, and then the bear hauls ass. So,
Okay.
uh,
Um,
but yeah,
and folks, we can confirm it was not Richard who was bucked by a buffalo.
no, it was
Did
not.
you see that video?
I did, and I was thinking
Okay.
about it when we were riding out on Monday because we came up over a hill, and there was so the buffalo there by themselves. They're the males for the most part. They're
Okay.
not with the herd,
Yeah.
and we came up upon one, and I thought he was a little too close, but you keep your eye on him, that's for sure. But you don't want to make eye contact with him either, even when you're
Hmm.
wearing sunglasses. At least that's what they told us. So
Okay.
it was good to get out of the park unscathed when it came to the buffalo and the bears, but it was a great trip.
Good. Well, we are looking forward to hearing more. And Richard, he doesn't have them right now, but he promised he's going to share some
I'll have
pictures.
I'll have pics for next week's episode.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people taking pictures that has to get organized into
Yeah.
albums, and
But our audience, what we're going to ask you guys to do is to predict the length, right? Of what maybe what type of fish you think Richard caught and how big.
well, I won't reveal it then because
Yeah.
yeah,
Put it in the comments
there's
for
plenty
this
there's
week.
there's plenty of fish pics, that's for sure. I did very well out there. I was happy with the trip. One of the best fishing trips of my life. So
That is awesome. And you
yeah,
know what? It is so refreshing. It's important to kind of get away sometimes, right?
yeah, to really unplug and recharge your batteries. It's if you
Yeah.
haven't done it, I highly recommend going somewhere where you cannot actually even be tempted to use your phone or get connected. Um, it's amazing the difference it makes.
Yeah.
At least it did for me. So,
Yeah. No, I recently, my phone is broken a handful of times. And it's one thing when you're in society. Like, for example, I don't have a house phone, right? So if something happens, the cell phone is also the only way to get in touch with emergency services or whatnot. Or, my son gets sick at school. How are they going to get a hold of me? Um, but to be in the wild and to have everybody important around you, that's something I need to also do, Richard.
you
uh,
won't regret it. I promise you. To our audience, you won't regret it either. If you get the
yeah.
chance, take it.
And of course, you can download our episodes and watch them, while you're on the
You,
run.
you can do
So
that.
yeah, so Richard, as we get started, I didn't know if maybe it's been a couple weeks before we get into some of the Fauci. Um, do we want to get into a little bit about Iran and just touch on it briefly? Richard is our military expert here, so he keeps us in the loop. But we don't have to go into it too briefly. Just wondering if you had any comments, thoughts, anything interesting to be looking out for.
Well, so it was interesting that the Israelis, widely believed to be uh, Bibi Netanyahu, stated that they believe the Iranians only have about 1,500 missiles left, um, which sounds like a lot, but it really isn't. When you look back at the first Iranian attacks on Israel, going back 2 years ago, when they would fire hundreds of ballistic missiles at Israel, they did it on more than one occasion. Um,
Where
if the
I'm
Israeli
sorry, where they fired hundreds on, there was multiple
in
occasions. Okay, so yeah,
yeah, in one
1,500.
salvo, one night. So they would fire these massive missile salvos
Wow.
at Israel, and by and large, uh, Iron Dome and David Sling, um, they handled these threats, and so the Iranian missile supply, if the Israelis are correct, has been severely depleted, and I think that is what is really inhibiting our offensive operations right now
Okay.
is the threat of Iranian missile attacks on our air bases and our logistics facilities in the Middle East, as well as our allies' infrastructure and whatnot.
Yeah.
So if we can, if we, the president can keep his foot on the gas and we keep these airstrikes going, we can deplete this missile capability to the point that then we can strike Pickaxe Mountain and allow the blockade to take its course and cripple Iran financially, economically, which it's it's doing already. Iran is in a lot of trouble. The numbers of for their economy are not discussed enough, but they are not good. They're getting into the neighborhood of hyperinflation, and so
And not to interrupt, but really quickly, you mentioned Pickaxe Mountain. Just for listeners that might not know, we believe that's where they're storing the enriched nuclear materials, right?
well,
Or
again,
what is it?
I believe that the Israelis and the United States know where the nuclear material is.
Okay.
I believe a fair amount of it's been buried.
Okay.
Without question, there are nuclear operations going on in Pickaxe Mountain. So it's still an important target.
Okay.
And if we take it out, uh, I think that might be um, the final nail in the coffin, if you will, for their nuclear program. Again, I think we make what's going on in Iran far, far too complicated. When you look at the original goals of eliminating their capability for a nuclear weapon, destroying their navy, eliminating their ballistic missile capability, and finally their ability to influence proxies, progress has been made in all of those areas. As a society, we lack a lot of patience. I'm very, very critical of the Trump administration for not making the case better to the American people before this
Yeah.
started. Um, what is going on right now, which I think is significant, one, Saudis have participated with the United States in joint offensive operations against Iranian proxies in Iraq. And second, the Israelis are not involved right now militarily. So we are attacking targets right now. Uh, we're using Tomahawk cruise missiles. We're obviously using joint direct attack munitions, but uh, not having the Israelis flying with us is significant. It's kind of like having a great relief pitcher in the bullpen. So we'll see what happens with the next few days. I really believe if the White House can be patient and allow things to play out the way I think they will, particularly as it relates to the blockade, we're going to see success in the end here.
And Richard, while you're talking about this, I'm going to just put up share a screen. Um, I actually I tend to agree with you here. About um Scott Bessent. And some of the he's posted here. Um, Treasury disrupts Iranian regime, Strait of Hormuz extortion network. Just while you're talking, I think this is kind of an important note. And I just want to say quickly, I believe that Secretary Bessent, and we'll post the link to this in the comment section of this episode. I believe Secretary Bessent has a unique understanding of of um of the economy and sanctions that our past Treasury folks maybe don't have. And that is because he's worked in it. I mean, if there's anybody um, that is understands currencies and markets, I believe Secretary Bessent does give us a little bit of a leg up in an understanding, including crypto, different markets that in the past we may have never touched.
Yeah, I think you could call him General Bessent in some ways. Some of the things that the Treasury Department's doing to great effect are um, are worthy of conversation. It's it's certainly not as glamorous or sexy as airstrikes and whatnot, but um, the economic power that's being wielded by Treasury in this conflict is not insignificant and is largely shocking, not surprisingly, going unreported by the corporate media for reasons that I don't understand. So yeah, it's this is a an effort diplomatically, militarily, economically that again requires patience and unfortunately deliberate, consistent action. And
Yeah,
that's that's uh, that's
self-limit.
something that's something we're doing to ourselves with the president not being consistent on this. Uh,
100%. We had this blockade going and then we lifted it. Now, you could make the argument we lifted it for ourselves too to relieve some pressure. But if we are not consistently applying this, right? Every time we come up for air, they come up for air too, right?
yeah.
And I think you can see this is where the weak attention span of Trump and I don't know if it's just that conflicting information or whatnot. Um, and at this point, you hear him say things like, "Well, the midterms they already don't matter" or whatnot. But if he's not you we need him to be more than consistently inconsistent, right? And for this to work, like I couldn't agree with you more. We need kind of steady, we need a plan, we need to stick to it. Ideally, you sell the plan to the American people because, when people I hear people say, "Well, this isn't what we were sold." I laugh. I say, "We weren't sold anything." He made zero attempt to sell us any plan or justification, to go to a war with Iran. But I would imagine you made the joke, although I agree with you about General Bessent. Trump's just got to get out of the way and um, let these guys do what they can do well.
Well, and I think some of it too with the president is he's so narcissistic, and
Oh,
I
oh,
think
totally.
I think he would rather. I believe I've said this on this show. I've said it on other platforms as well. I think he'd rather sign a peace deal and be a great negotiator than just win the damn war and be a great
Yeah,
wartime president.
yeah.
Um, Even if we do win the war, I'm not sure I would call President Trump a great wartime president, but I do take comfort in that the nuclear program has been damaged severely. Their ballistic missile program has been damaged severely. Their Navy is gone. And it would appear that their proxies are having a difficult time uh, exercising influence in their parts of the region. It's not as easy for Hezbollah or the Houthis to do what they did um, even a year ago.
Yeah.
Certainly, they're not as relevant as they were 3 4 years ago. So
No, and you'd
there's
have to imagine the regime needs to prioritize funding themselves, right?
yeah, and one of the
You
things too,
just don't have the money to
yeah,
be.
and one of the things I would really tell our audience to watch out for is our target packages. When it comes to the Israelis, for those that don't know, the Israelis do they strike as a general rule they strike different uh, targets than the United States does. The Israelis go after IRGC. Like most of the IRGC folks that were killed at the beginning of the war, they were killed by the Israeli Air Force. And police stations, holding cells, things like that. Those are targets that um, really matter to the IRGC. That's how they influence. That's how they exert control over the population. And so, if the United States, if we start taking out those types of facilities, then that could be telling for what the future of the regime might look like. Regime
Okay.
change would be great, but I still don't believe it's going to be as a result of this operation. I would think it would still be something that would not be so much kinetic, but be more of a covert operation, certainly involving Mossad and resistance inside Iran. And that's where the blockade comes into place. I don't think the regime would fall just because of a poor economy, because it's been a poor economy for a long, long time, decades. But I do think that hyperinflation and a collapsing economy could enable the end of the government. But the only way the government's going to come collapsing down is for the people to rise up. And
Yeah.
that's going to involve, obviously, I believe, some covert operations between intelligence agencies like Mossad and the CIA, as well as potential special forces involvement. And you know, our ability to support those folks who are risking their lives if they were to rise up. We've had a poor track record in that part of the world of
Yep.
supporting people in those operations. Don't have to look too far in the past after Desert Storm and President George H.W. Bush. Promises were made that were not kept in Iraq, and people lost their lives based on
Yeah.
that. So I'm hopeful that the government will eventually collapse, but I'm not optimistic that it will. I think that they're they're in this for the long haul, so we need to focus on our military goals and accomplishing those.
Yeah. And a really quick, this is somewhat related. Um, and I would like to, I'm going to share another post on Secretary Bessent before we kind of move in um, into to Fauci. But uh, Bessent also recently noted he would like to see the pass the Clarity Act. Um, so I'm just going to post really quick here. Bessent's post, but he's basically calling for he's saying that Senate Republicans have produced he describes it as a floor ready product that as he types this waiting for a vote. He's really urging that we get the Clarity Act passed. And briefly, for those that are not familiar with the Clarity Act, I'm just going to read quick. It's comprehensive U.S. legislation establishing a regulatory framework for digital assets, primarily cryptocurrencies and related tokens. It passed the House in July 2025 and it advanced through Senate committees. And its core goal is to reduce regulatory uncertainty by clarifying jurisdiction between the SEC and the Commodities Futures Trading Commissions. while imposing consumer protections, anti-money laundering rules, and safeguards for decentralized finance. This, I believe, the Clarity Act and some of this is when Scott Bessent talks about doing things for Main Street, not Wall Street. I believe the Clarity Act falls under that general jurisdiction. Um, and it builds a little, we briefly mentioned a little bit about stable coins, which was building on, Genius Act and whatnot. But again, I would urge people to do some research about this Clarity Act and motivate your representatives to get moving on stuff like this.
So this is about protecting the crypto
Yeah.
industry.
Yep. Crypto. But this passed. The only thing holding this up is the Senate Democrats right now. This passed the House. And
What's so controversial about it?
largely, um, I'm well, we can kind of read. Um, there has been progress since thousands of hours of bipartisan negotiations took place at the staff and member levels. The Senate committees on banking and agricultural advanced their respective titles, and Senate Republicans produced a floor-ready product that, as I typed, is waiting for a vote. It's disappointing, but not surprising, that Senate Democrats are choosing politics on the cusp of a major victory for American leadership. Um, Largely, and I'm paraphrasing, when given the choice, opted to push an industry out of the US rather than smartly regulate it. Um, Under the Biden administration, because this does tie into AI and whatnot, um, uh, the the argument was that AI and some of the crypto lacks safeguards and consumer safety tools and therefore um, we should basically just instead of smartly regulating it, just try to stop it. I happen to agree with Bessent here. I think the best thing to do, we can't be afraid of new technologies and new things that pop up. We just have to be smart about it. Regulate it, put those safeguards in place. This is also similar to like AI. Uh, it it I
I,
believe there's outside forces pushing, leading some of the opposition to this. China would love it if we just you know let
I
uh, let our government instead of wisely regulating and putting the safeguards in place, so then the Chinese markets would be open.
I honestly have to. I think crypto's a Ponzi scheme. I've never understood it. Nobody's ever been able to explain it to me in an elevator speech. Uh,
So we're
I
gonna maybe next episode we're gonna do an
Yeah, I
overview of
mean,
crypto.
I trust Secretary Bessent in trying to protect the crypto industry. I I don't I don't invest in it. I don't believe in it. I Maybe it is important. I don't know, but to me, it's just
I
uh,
understand. And you know what? Maybe okay, we'll kind of put a pin in this and then we'll explore crypto and kind of come back to that.
well, I think the people that love it and are passionate about it, they get it. They're always trying to sell it though. They're always trying to sell the concept of it. And to my understanding, the concept of crypto is to avoid regulation and avoid banks. And so now that we're trying to regulate it, it seems kind of backwards. But again, I
Yeah,
am
I don't
not.
know. I wouldn't agree with that characterization of trying to avoid regulation, but I can see how it kind of got that narrative. And you know what? I think we'll dig into this a little bit more. I think this is an interesting
Are you
topic.
are you gonna make me have to do some reading for the show? I'm gonna have to like do some research.
Okay, audience, should we, if I assign Richard homework, then I'll get homework. No, I think we should dig into it. And because my guess is that, and there's plenty of things about it I don't know. And not all crypto is the same.
That
So,
I do know. I do get
yeah.
that part, and I
So,
have some
you know what?
friends who are crypto
Yeah,
warriors and really believe in it. And like 4 years ago, when they were telling me that Bitcoin would be worth $150,000 a coin by now,
yeah,
and it's been in the upper 50s, low 60s for a while. It had that brief spike. I guess it was
yeah.
like a year and a half ago where it got to like almost 100 grand. But
And,
I
and,
I
and
don't
there
want
is,
to be the get off my lawn angry old man, but when it comes to crypto, but I just I'm a traditional guy. Invest in the Nasdaq, the S&P, and the Dow Jones, and find your good blue ribbon or your blue chip stocks to own and be patient. But
well, we will definitely get, we will we'll get into that, at a deeper level. Um, so, as we kind of shift, Richard, I just was wondering if we could, what were your general thoughts? I feel like there's no way for us not to discuss the interview, um, Senator Rand
oh, the
Paul.
testimony. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Fauci.
Yep.
Yeah. Uh, my thoughts are that he has his pardon from former President Biden. And if you're going to be in that position and assume those responsibilities, which he willfully did during the pandemic, then you need to be a man, stand up for what you did, explain it, take responsibility, and also admit blame. It would be refreshing to see anybody in Washington, D.C. actually take blame for something. Um, and a matter of fact, Senator Fetterman did after the hearing. He uh, had a scrum of reporters that he was talking to, and at the time of COVID, he was the lieutenant governor of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And Fetterman said, "I regret some of the things that I said and did, and I respect that. I don't care what side of the
Yeah.
aisle you're on. We all make mistakes, but if you're going to be in an important position where people's lives are on the line, whether it's in public health leadership, being a senior officer of any type in the military, but the senior officers, flag officers, if you're going to be before Congress." Uh, I don't care if you have a pardon or not. You should be candid and open and um, and give a straight accounting of what took place, what went right, what went wrong, because ultimately um, the goal is to prevent this from happening again. Because without question, we're going to be faced with public health threats in the future,
Yeah.
um, and we made mistakes, and we need to learn from those mistakes so we don't repeat them again.
Yep.
And so it's just absolutely mind-boggling to me that somebody like Dr. Fauci, who claims to care so much about public health and the good uh, of and doing what's best for America, pled the fifth over 100 times, and had to go in there with an army of lawyers, even though he had a presidential pardon. And whatever he had left that was good for his reputation, he ruined it yesterday. That's his reputation is yesterday now for his 50 some odd years of work at the National Institutes of Health. That's going to be his reputation now.
Yep.
Is
That's how he
yesterday.
leads. Yep.
So I found it really, really disappointing and unfortunate. I don't feel sorry for the man at all. I think what he said in his diaries, uh, and the clear contradictions between what he wrote in his diary and what he said publicly, that alone is dereliction of duty. Not to
Yeah.
mention that he destroyed records, not to mention that he disobeyed orders from the president of the United States when Obama was president about gain of function research. Yes, I realize that he can't be prosecuted for destroying government records or what he disobeying President Obama's orders because he has his pardon. But he still did those things, and he asked his staff to participate in the destruction of records. And
Yep.
uh, it's all it, and I'm really disappointed with how the corporate media has covered this. There's a casual dismissal of COVID. I was very fortunate. I didn't have any loved ones die. I did not have to go through the awful experience of not being able to say goodbye to somebody I cared about. Um, and so, but but millions of Americans did have to go through that.
Yeah.
And for people to not recognize what a terrible experience it was, I can't imagine if I was not able to say goodbye to, uh, you know, my father passed away in 2023. I can't imagine if I wouldn't have been able to spend time with him when he was the last few months of his life when he had cancer and was on his his literally his deathbed. So
Yeah.
for people to be so casual and dismissive of the real suffering that people experienced during COVID is insulting to me, and another reason why you can't hate the mainstream corporate media enough. And my last thought on this opening segment on this topic is we still have no idea how bad uh, our children are going to suffer based on the policies of that Dr. Fauci in large part encouraged, and his diary supports. He's very happy when uh, numerous different public school systems in America decided to keep their classrooms closed, and the
Yep.
damage to those kids as they go through life, I don't think we can begin to even measure how much damage has been done and how it will impact them moving forward and our society.
I couldn't agree more on the education. And while you've been talking, I pulled up I just so this is the journal entry. This particular one is about this is from August 13th, 2022, when I don't know if you could agree with me on the tone here or not, but he's publicly stating that the COVID vaccines um, or he stopped the CDC from publicly acknowledging that they were not effective at all in preventing infection and transmission. Um, and then, here we thought we had gotten them to pull back from making the statement. The reason that there's an issue is if they came out with this statement, um, which in fact is not entirely true, since there is some degree of modest but declining protection, as you would expect, then this would conflict with the statement and effort recommending that people get the updated bivalent and vaccine in September. And remember, now this is in August of 2022, years after. In addition, it would undermine DOJ's efforts at mandates for vaccines. So if you just listen to his reasoning, it's things like that that really upset me because first of all, um, there should be scientific justification, right, for uh, every single decision that our public health officials are making, right? It shouldn't we shouldn't ever be just justifying it because we want the people to believe us. Um, and And when I read through some of these posts, I don't know about you, but I don't get, I just get, here, I'm going to post another one here that I think is in particular. Um, I think what irritates me is his tone. Um, this is now May 21st, 2020. Up here, you can see in yellow the death tolls. But then he goes into the press coverage he's getting, right? Uh, Big front page article about me appeared in the Washington Post. Very flattering. The situation with my national and international fame is explosive and really unimaginable. It is not hyperbole to say that today I am the most famous and talked about person in the country and one of the most recognizable people in the world. Countless profiles on me and multiple media. And then he continues to go through here and but then casually mention the number of deaths. And then down here again, then, a couple days later or the next day, the press is going wild with me. I see all this and I just get, to me, this is incredibly frustrating because um, I guess I would expect more out of I I I would expect more out of our public health officials. And then when he gets up there and he speaks and he says, well, this is a private journal. Well, Dr. Fauci, you of all people should know anything you do on your work computer eh, is public, right?
Certainly.
And yesterday we were having a debate on this on two-way, and somebody said, well, why is Fauci being targeted? What about all these other people? What would you have these people do? And my first thought was just not lie. Just publicly and privately, your thoughts should match, should line up, right? Like we haven't even gotten into the ones about where we know he was funding gain of function research outside of America. And to your point, he disobeyed Obama. Clearly, President Obama had a reason to stop it, which I think you summed up nicely when you mentioned there's a difference between civilian research and military research, right?
Yeah, so that's important that gain of function research goes on in the military for a good reason, because biological weapons are we have to develop tactics and procedures and equipment to counter them. And biological weapons, obviously, we have enemies around the world that have biological weapons, and if they make them more lethal, we have to come up with equally effective defenses in our equipment, our tactics, and procedures. What President Obama was talking about was, why are we doing this in a civilian
Yeah.
environment? And he was not satisfied with the answers he got. And to put it simplistically, they took money and gave it to foreign entities to do the research for them. And I believe everything that President Obama rightfully was concerned about is what happened in
Yeah.
Wuhan.
It's exactly what happened. And not only that, so and part of the reason, if you dig through that, that work, and it's not like it was just President Obama that was worried about this. There were many scientists themselves arguing there is no justification for this work because and one of the big arguments in favor of doing this work was, well, we would be able to create a vaccine. But if you create the disease first, right, or the illness, the only reason you need a vaccine is if you created it. Um, and I think that's often dismissed or and not really acknowledged. It wasn't like it was Obama, President Obama versus the scientific world. There were many scientists that were in agreement with President Obama. And there's different lab safety levels. And in China, the Wuhan Institute of Virology was operating under BSL-2 conditions, which it's been explained to me, and it's been said that's basically like a dentist office, right? So would absolutely not be the right environment for any sort of gain of function research where you're actually taking a virus and trying to make it worse, to impart more damage. but what to me these diary entries reveal is just the his who he was privately and who he was publicly are just two different personas, you know. And I don't know if maybe when you've literally been, wasn't he the longest tenured federal government employee ever or something? I don't know if when you've survived that long, seven different administrations, you get some air of hubris about you. But just the fact alone that it's like, hey, a president says stop doing something, and what we go to is, oh, well, here, let's just pay this organization that's going to look the other way. Well, they do this research in China where we lose control of it. We still fund it, we lose control of it, and at a lower safety level. Eh,
Well, I don't understand why it's even partisan.
Right?
If a general or an admiral fighting in a war, losing men and women under their command in combat, wrote a memoir or diary stating some of the things Fauci did. Well,
Oh,
we have 30,000 cases. Today we lost 400 people have died in America. If a general was like, well, we have 600 wounded this today, and 85 were killed in action, and I'm going to be on the cover of Time next week.
yeah,
The American public would be outraged. Like, that's not
outrage.
outraged, and rightfully so. So we
Yeah.
have the director of NIAID, the National Institute for Allergic and Infectious Disease, which is part of the National Institutes of Health, which is what Dr. Fauci was. He was the director of NIAID for a long, long time. It's not a political appointment. So, so this position does not turn over from administration to
Yeah.
administration. Um, all that being said, the fact that Democrats are going to the mat
Yeah.
for Dr. Fauci absolutely pu- blows me away. I don't get the rationale for somebody who a lot of mistakes were made in COVID, and Dr.
Yeah.
Fauci wasn't the only one who making
No,
mistakes. Um, the
but
his
he wasn't
attitude,
the
well, the way
only.
he handled it post
Yeah.
COVID, and his absolute,
His refusal to acknowledge even the tiniest mistake, right? Have we
well,
heard him
yeah,
acknowledge anything?
I don't believe so. But in his diaries, when he talks about being the greatest,
Oh,
the greatest doctor in the world,
yeah,
and and just his 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 absolute uh, look on
arrogance.
his face, he's literally he gets so offended when people even have the gall to question him or ask him a question.
Yeah,
I think he thinks that he is so above the fray. He views himself so highly that how
yes,
dare you? You're just a U.S. senator.
yeah.
Even Rand Paul, who's an actual doctor, how dare you question me?
And you know
He
what?
has that attitude, and it's absolutely nauseating to me to even look at the man.
Oh, I know. And you know what's so funny is that attitude is what the American people really don't like. That is the attitude of so many in Washington, though, too, right?
Yeah,
Just this idea of, well, I'm just above the law anyway, right? Like, oh, this may apply to you regular folk, but here, and I think that hubris and that arrogance, but then that anyone is attaching themselves to this because and I will say this without trying to choke up because I truly I don't think the average person understands how poor our education system is, just how bad the results we are delivering are. But then you have to take, and so this is the part that really grinds my gears about Dr. Fauci bragging about convincing Bill de Blasio to close New York City schools and being on with Newsom's staff to close California schools. Those schools, are already performing are some of the worst in the right, declining, bad performance already. They stayed closed a lot longer. Their performance continued to decline, right? And now, and what you then you look at like a state like Florida, right? I mean, how often was he going after DeSantis? He even mentions DeSantis and some of his diary entries. Well, look at the educational results coming out of Florida. They did not suffer to the same extent they did in these states that here is Dr. Fauci bragging about having those schools closed. Those states, New York is already spending the most money per capita to educate our students. And we know that Randy Weingarten, the president of the teachers union, was on with CDC director Walensky, and that these folks were having private conversations. These teachers didn't want to go to work, right? And who is suffering? The children, right? And to see this persona just so arrogant, and again, just what do I expect out of public health officials? One, not to lie. I mean, I feel like that is the absolute floor, right? That is the minimum. And then um, publicly and privately, your messaging should be the same, and it should be based on science. Absolutely not how this might play out for DOJ's vaccine mandates. How just I think when you go back to that post where he said, well, this might make it hard for our DOJ, the DOJ to go forward with these vaccine mandates. You just admitted a few sentences ago that it's not going to stop transmission. Why are we even having a conversation about mandates?
Well, it's about money. And that's, I mean, that's just my cynical take on it, is that there was money to be made. Um, I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole,
Yeah.
but but um, it's an odd relationship between the NIH and distributing grant money, and how money comes back to researchers at NIH, and there's a lot of details in that I don't think are that interesting, but they certainly, NIH certainly benefits from pharmaceutical companies doing well if
Did
they're a part of the research.
did um did now Josh Hawley went after him. And he specifically said, Senator Hawley said, you got rich while people were dying.
Yeah, and
What's
there's
Fauci making money off of? The vaccines while people were dying.
yeah, and again, I guess my biggest problem, I think, to be a leader, a good leader, you have to have humility. You have to be a humble leader. And certainly Dr. Fauci was not a humble leader. There was a money motive in all of this. Um, the wealthiest people in the world got even wealthier during the pandemic.
Yep.
And um, one of the things that's really unfortunate, I know education is a huge issue for you, and the poor state of our education system. I would take it even further. One of the things that COVID really highlighted is that America's education system isn't bad. It's only bad if you're not wealthy.
Yes.
So, if you are going to the top public high schools in America
For private schools.
or the private schools, but I'm going to focus on public schools because
Okay.
because certainly, yeah, if you're worth millions of dollars in America, you're a member of Congress, there's a good chance your children are going to private schools,
Yeah.
good ones. But the best public schools in America, and there's plenty of very good public high schools in America, all across the country, uh, that their graduates go to the best universities, they go to the service academies, the Ivy League, and they do very, very well. But the majority of public schools in America struggle with meeting standards. And COVID made that struggle even worse. And one of the things that really was of note to me was how so many people do not understand the home life of
Yeah.
children, and
Yeah.
that okay, I can be on take classes from home. Well, how many kids in the Baltimore public school system do you think have Wi-Fi and a laptop at home?
Yeah.
There's a
And
big
even,
difference between that and a wealthy suburb like Edina, Minnesota,
yep.
or that to me really illustrated the 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 gap in understanding between elected officials and career bureaucrats
Yes.
and the reality of what goes on in so many school districts across the country.
Yeah. And even those wealthy kids, I'm sorry, an online, a digital kindergarten, good luck, right? I mean, but those parents will then pay for a private tutor, right? Or the school is wealthy enough to supplement the education later, a couple years down the road, whereas most places it isn't. And all we did was make the gap between the haves and the have-nots even larger. And now, right now, the solution is more inequity, right? Socialism, for trying
Well,
equality.
yeah, and I think my final thought on Dr. Fauci, I suppose, is if you are willing to accept a position, nobody drafted Dr. Fauci to be the NIAID director.
Yep.
Uh, Um, if you assume command of a warship in the U.S. Navy, you're the captain of a U.S. Navy warship. You understand that there are things that if you have a collision with another ship, you're getting fired. If you run your ship aground, even if you're asleep in your cabin, you're getting fired. Okay, there's an accountability that you understand going into a position of leadership and responsibility, and if you shirk that uh, responsibility and refuse to talk about it afterwards to
Yes.
prevent something from happening in the future, that to me is a very cowardly thing to do and is not emblematic of being a good human being, let alone a good leader of people. And so uh, a lot of this focuses on Dr. Fauci, and it's understandable. Uh,
Yeah.
but what is not has not been done is a really good public, transparent investigation about what was done during COVID. And I have
Well,
zero confidence that it will happen. And so now we're left with what about the next uh, threat?
yep.
What about the next pandemic? We have not we have not shared with the American people what lessons were learned, if any, and how we're going to prevent the same mistakes from happening again. And this is where uh, humility really becomes important.
Yep.
I'm an Air Force guy. I was an aviation professional in the Air Force, an aircraft maintenance officer, and when we have aircraft mishaps, or even I won't even go to that extreme. You debrief when
Yeah.
there's an incident. Everybody checks their egos at the door because nobody wants to end up dead the next day from like, oh, hey, we know what? We've done this before and it was a mistake and we didn't take measures to address it and prevent it from happening again. And so that's a core part of aviation is to constantly be evaluating yourself, the people you're with, making sure that you're on the cutting edge, the leading edge of safety, and not doing stupid things. And that really requires checking your ego, admitting when
Yeah.
you make a mistake, telling somebody that may outrank you they made a mistake. Okay, we
Yeah.
can't do this. Uh, and that culture, to me, should be very uh, obvious as an essential part of public health. And I have not seen that. Uh, it's happened behind closed doors and they don't want to share it with the American public. I think that's a mistake because,
It's even
uh,
worse in some
yeah,
ways.
it's even worse because because I looked at COVID and our public health leadership. The American public were like the army,
Yeah.
uh, and if you're going to bullshit, soldiers have a great bullshit filter. They can tell
Yep.
when people are lying to them. Um, I wish that during COVID, President Trump, President Biden, the public health leadership would have just used three words: "I don't know,"
Yes. Yep.
or "We don't
Or
know," and
we
the
don't.
American public could have handled it.
Yeah. Or, well, we thought it was this. We now have evidence that it's
Yeah.
not. I think, to kind of close on Fauci, on January 26th, privately, this is 2020, he writes in his diary, we know the market was not the source. It was the amplifier. Okay.
What was the date on that?
Publicly, publicly on
What
120 on January 27th, 2020. He gets up in front of a bunch of science journalists and says the market was probably the source. It doesn't, it doesn't get any worse than that. And I think it sums up just the hubris too of this administrative state that is government. This is what Americans can't stand about Washington, D.C., right? About the swamp, the uniparty, they're all baked in there. And so this is why, like to your point earlier, how are there still people defending this man? Like, at what point do you yourself not have any shame?
Well, it goes back to I think it was our first episode. We were talking about credentialism,
Yeah,
and that for a lot of people, uh, what is on someone's resume, the pieces of paper they have hanging on their wall, um, the degrees they have, and whatnot, it still matters a lot. And you can be a very smart person. Uh, Being a smart doctor, researcher at a place like the NIH is one thing. It
yeah,
does not mean you're a good leader. Not all attorneys are good in court. There's a lot of attorneys in America who never see a courtroom once in their entire career. They do legal work, they do research, they but they're not trial lawyers. It just because you're a good doctor, a good researcher, which maybe Dr. Fauci was when he started his career, it does not necessarily mean you're a good public communicator. It does not mean that
yeah.
you're a good leader. And so that, I guess, for me, um,
Y-
I
You,
wish that transparency um, was more. I wish the lack of transparency was more offensive to more people
yeah,
in the country.
yeah. And one other thing, and I know I said that I was going to be done. What this just recently came to mind, because honestly, it's all coming up, was he hid that he had a pulmonary infarction after he received the vaccine on TV. He did not disclose that. Um, and I can I can really quickly I can share. I'm going to share a video here, um, because I actually think this is really I think this is important. So
a pulmonary infarction. One of the things that was new to me in his diary was his admission that he got a pulmonary infarction in July of 2021 after receiving the vaccine. So he took the Moderna vaccine on national TV, telling in a very, very highly publicized press conference to show people that was safe. Then he got one of the primary, most expected adverse events, which was potentially deadly blood clots in his lung, myocardial infarction. He kept that secret from the American public, and we only learned about it because of his diary. He was getting the best medical treatment that is available to anybody in the world at Walter Reed and all these other centers. There were doctors fawning over him. Meanwhile, he was telling other people to take this product and concealing the fact that he himself, after announcing this press conference to show it was safe, had actually gotten very, very sick from an injury that was highly expected and highly likely to be caused by the vaccine.
I don't know about you, Richard, but I see that, and that makes my blood boil.
I don't know who I'm more upset with. The fact that Dr. Fauci uh,
Publicized press
omitted
conference
that and
to
and
show me.
and lied about it, or the fact that Joe Biden pardoned him.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I
So,
mean, again, uh, if a general or an admiral at the Pentagon lied and did the things that Dr. Fauci did, I think there would be a more consistent level of outrage across the entire country, and it wouldn't be partisan. So I'm very baffled and puzzled by the Democratic support for Dr. Fauci. The fact that I think all the senators, except for Fetterman, they left the hearing yesterday. They walked out of the hearing. Don't know why you want to hitch your wagon to this guy, but they
yeah.
certainly are.
Yeah, they certainly are.
COVID didn't care if you were a Democrat or a Republican. These policies did not care if your mother was dying in a nursing or in a hospital from cancer and you couldn't see her. Uh, these policies and the disease itself, they didn't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat.
No.
So I personally don't know uh, anyone in my life who is a Democrat. That all the Democrats I know in my life, let me rephrase, make some more sense here, taking the long way around to get to this point. Democrats I know in my life are not fans of Dr. Fauci.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just anybody that is going to be blindly loyal based on the party, I have I guess I just um uh I have a hard time. I would just ask them, well, what is it that would make you rethink, right?
Well, and that's a good point. The team sports, it occurs on
Yeah.
both sides of the aisle. We all know that. What I think about after this testimony yesterday and this whole debacle with Dr. Fauci, I think about the consistency in our history of government officials lying and covering things up, and people in the professional political class in Washington taking care of each other.
Yes.
And it's not this is a uniparty thing. Democrats take care of Republicans,
Yep.
you know, I'm sure that there was plenty of Democrats who knew about Mitch McConnell's problems way before it was obvious to the American public.
Yep.
Feinstein in California, there's plenty of Republicans that knew about her issues. Uh, they all protect each other. I wonder what is going on right now that is an issue where we just don't have nearly all the information.
Yes.
And
It
that's why I think it's so important to constantly question what is going on, even at the risk of being accused of being a conspiracy theorist or uh, going down rabbit holes. Or it's so important to constantly keep
100%.
questioning people.
Yeah. 100%. And to get the facts, right? Because I mean, there's also people that you just see blindly. Donald Trump could say anything to them and they would be fawning all over him. Like, like if you at this point haven't figured out that Donald Trump is a narcissist, right? And that loves good press, and then I'm sorry, I don't know, I don't know what else to tell you.
Yeah.
And oh, just like, but what is happening is we when one side is so ridiculous that the other side can also be ridiculous, just not quite as ridiculous, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think we get into these debates and we get into these debates and I think both parties really look down on the voters. And I think they get into a I think both parties think
They do.
they think they know what's best, and that they can tell people what to do. And maybe that's true for a certain percentage of the population. Um, I think COVID scared the hell out of a lot of Americans.
Yes.
And in that, what is that old phrase? In stormy seas, you'll find any port, something
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
any port is good.
Yeah, something like that. And I butchered it. I know that's not how it goes, but um, and I think Dr. Fauci was that port for a
Yeah,
lot of people.
yeah,
And the idea that somebody that they probably I had people in my life that were terrified of it.
yes,
The idea that somebody that they clung to every word he said and put a tremendous amount of faith and trust in this man, the idea that faith and trust was misplaced is really hard for them to accept.
yeah. You know what though? One thing comes to my mind, Richard. Only those that could afford to believe him, right? That financially could afford to believe him and follow every his word, um, could, right? If you were the essential workers, right? Um, that you had to go into work. It didn't matter that maybe you had elderly parents at home or an immunocompromised child. There was no backup. There was no remote work if you delivered for UPS or you worked at a grocery store, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I think what we really saw was, and maybe this is why the message was amplified, because only if you could afford to listen to Dr. Fauci did you, right? So that meant you already have a certain amount of privilege or wealth or comfortable, right? Those that just simply could not afford to not go into work, to not send their kids to school or daycare, or to not rely on the elderly grandparent, even that maybe it was immunocompromised because that was their only child care, right? Um, I, I, I think I wish that maybe I'll do some research to see kind of the impact on that because I believe while it may not look like it on a deeper level, a lot of COVID was about, and you mentioned it briefly, the haves and the have-nots, right? If you could afford the really nice home in the high-end school district, your learning loss on your children was minimal, right? And
Well,
so,
and yeah, but also people with means. They came up with solutions
yeah, because they could afford
because
them.
they could afford them. So I will violate the local public health officials' warnings about
Yeah,
and like, okay, so there's 8 families and we've got,
yeah,
12 kids in these schools. We'll all go to so and so's house
yeah.
and have a tutor.
We'll just hire a teacher,
Yep.
right?
Or yeah,
But
it occurred all over the country.
yeah, but if you couldn't afford that, you just had to live and you had to live with the consequences. And I think that fact alone, that so many people, did survive. Here's the other reality. Why was the death toll so bad in America? Because we are largely out of shape, overweight, unhealthy. We have excessive comorbidities. If you look at the countries that had the largest death toll, there's a pattern there, right?
Right.
Overweight, out of shape, unhealthy. And that alone, but again, we can afford to be like that. And then you look at, I read somewhere Nigeria had 1/200 of the death toll that we did. They didn't have the vaccine campaign like we did, but their obesity rate is it compared to ours is so minimal. So I think I wish if I'm going to ask the researchers, that we can actually trust to do some research, I would like to dig into a little bit about the ongoing impact again of this wealth divide. I just think it's so rich for some of these people to sit in their homes and judge people, sit in their nice homes, right? Maybe they have a pool in their home. They've got plenty of bedroom space for all their family members. They're having their groceries delivered, their food delivered, right? Yeah, it's great to stay home if you can Netflix and chill for months and months, but that's just not the reality of most of America. And so I think I see largely that same group of people defending Fauci.
Interesting point. I can't really find any holes in what you just said there. Not that I was trying to, but I never kind of made that connection of who's defending him.
Oh, some people
And
not can afford to.
yeah, I mean, and I haven't really seen polling on public support like what Fauci's polling right now. I'm not sure if it's even being asked. Um, but again, I think this whole situation and what took place yesterday on Capitol Hill in the Senate, I would encourage everybody to use it as a a, a, a bookmark in the back of your brain,
Yep,
and you see that tab on your browser and just click on it and just be like, yeah, I wonder what I wonder what they're lying about right now. One thing
yep,
I really look at, I'm not putting a tinfoil hat on, uh, election integrity.
yep. Oh,
Boy, they sure do doth protest too greatly.
remember,
Everybody
it's
gets
it's
fired
not
up about.
happening, Richard. It's not
It's not
happening.
happening.
It's
I
not happening.
know it's
Oh, wait, maybe okay, maybe it's happening, but it's only a little, right? It's,
only a
it's only
little.
a little. Wait, it's actually a good thing it's happening.
Yeah, I mean it's something that just when I talk about, I wonder what they're protecting, what they're lying about now. It's
Yep.
the first issue that pops into my mind. And I would also say another thing. Don't forget what happened in Afghanistan and the
Yes.
Afghanistan papers. That book, the amount of senior leadership at the Pentagon, both civilian and uh, uniformed flag officers, that lied repeatedly of years and years about what was going on in Afghanistan. They lied to Congress.
We're gonna
They,
need you to do a special on that, maybe.
well, that's, yeah, I could certainly do that. But they lied about what was going on in the war
Yeah.
for years and years and years. COVID, lies and lies.
To what end do you think they lied in Afghanistan? Cover CYA?
Uh, I think a lot of it was CYA, but CYA in that, you know, they want to get promoted. And
Got it.
um, even when you're a 4 star or a 3 star, you can still move up.
Yeah.
Well, obviously a 3 star can't, but even the 4 stars, if you're the commander of U.S.
Yeah,
forces in Afghanistan, you might want to be the chief of staff of the army next, or the
that's true.
chairman of the Joint Chiefs, or the
Yeah.
vice chairman.
President.
Yeah, who knows? So,
Yeah.
uh, or like Lloyd Austin, he's Secretary of Defense someday. So,
Take a
um,
take a couple week vacation. You don't need to tell anyone.
yeah, yeah, just go hang out at Walter Reed for a couple of weeks. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
No, it's just something that I get people take comfort in expertise. And I'm not dismissing expertise and credentials, but there's a balance between expertise and credentials and also using practical experience
Yeah.
in your decision making and using good judgment.
And
And
Richard, if there isn't a divide, I think if it signifies a divide between two sides, those that believe the government can administer life better than the individual, right? I mean, to me, when I see the two sides, I look at those that are like, hey, government, leave me alone. I want to interact with you minimally. I can determine my own life the best. And on the other side, this large administrative state. And we do have Woodrow Wilson to thank for this excessive, large administrative state. And that might be a tease for a later episode there.
I was going to say, you're going to make me pull out some history books here, uh, or use the Google. Uh, so, yeah, this has been a fun conversation today. It's been an interesting few days since I got back from vacation, and I'm glad the world wasn't as didn't go completely to hell in a handbasket while I was gone. I was expecting maybe the Middle East to really be on fire when I turned my phone on Monday afternoon. So glad it's not.
We held it together. I said, Iran, just keep it together.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't want to have any FOMO. Uh,
Well, we
so
missed you. We're glad you're back.
it's good to be back, and we have
And
some news for the 250 tour and our
yeah,
second guest.
yeah.
I'll let you handle that.
So we want you guys to stay tuned to our X account. We're going to be posting our next interview, and we happen to think she's great, and happen to think she is quite exemplifying the American dream. I did reveal a little bit with the she, but you will have to tune in to find out who our next um, 250 tour interview is and when that episode will premiere. But
Yep.
as always, like, subscribe, share, comment. Let us know how many fish you think Richard caught, and were they this big? Were they, did you measure them in inches, centimeters, feet? And what
Teaser.
kind?
I
And Richard,
honestly,
when you,
I caught too many to really keep track. There were so many.
oh, them's fighting words. Now, Richard, when you were taking the pictures, did you hold them a lot closer to the camera?
I didn't take any pictures.
Oh, okay.
I had people take pictures of me. So
Oh,
I should have just had like a little personal fishing assistant. I caught so many fish they could have just videoed me the whole day. So
well, folks, you hear that, right? Let's make sure we Richard had his own little paparazzi.
yeah. So I will say this out of uh, uh, my family members, I caught the most fish. I did
Oh,
not catch the biggest fish though.
okay.
So um, I until the very end, I had the biggest fish and the most fish, but I
Oh,
lost out on the biggest fish at the end. But I'm very happy for the person that caught the biggest fish. It was a great day. So
well, that is wonderful. And Richard will come back with some pictures from next time. So
I will.
put your guesses in the comments. And we look forward to the next episode.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Everyone have a great one. We'll see ya.
Bye.